I am going to show you how to make fabric bunting. And you're going to say, oh, well, that's so easy. I don't need a video tutorial. Well, maybe you do, because I've got tips and tricks. I've been sewing buntings forever, ever since we lived in England a million years ago, it feels like. You can do my regular size, just normal fabric bunting like this. You can wash and dry these. I do it all the time. You can make welcome home banners. I'll throw some pictures up in the blog post at hungryhippiesews.com to show you what I mean. It's something you can sew when you're watching TV or listening to a podcast. You know, you don't have to think too hard. So how's that for an introduction? Let's get sewing. So with the bunting, I want you to go ahead and print off whatever size you want to make. This is the regular size. I'll update the pattern so you know what size is what. This is the large, and I'll add the baby size as well, just so you know what you want to do. Right away, what I do is cut the shape out. And you can measure, if you don't have a printer at home, the widest part of my regular size triangle is 6.5 inches from here to here. And the length from top to bottom is 7.5 inches. Now, since I get some questions sometimes on the large size, let me show you how this goes together. And of course, I left my tape downstairs, I think. Okay, so you'll just flip one of the sides, overlap it just a smidge. You can see how this goes together. And then just put a strip of tape right down the middle, and you've got your large size. The large size is 9.5 inches across at the widest at the top, and 10.25 tall. So just tape those together and you can cut out your shapes. So a lot of times I like it to go a little faster. So I will cut at least 2 at a time. Sometimes I will even cut 4 at a time. And as long as you've got a good rotary cutter with a fresh blade, I like my Havel's rotary cutter. This is just a 45 millimeter. It's nothing special. It's pretty normal. You're going to cut through these layers just fine. You can use any kind of acrylic ruler. I'm going to bring this one in. And I don't even pin. I just press it on here. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm doing. I lay the bunting on there. And I'm taking my rotary cutter and acrylic ruler just a smidge outside the template. I'm going to turn it around. You can pin this in place if you like. If you have flat pins, it works best. I like these flower flat pins because the head is perfectly flat and I can put a ruler on top without it rolling around. I'm going to turn it one more time. Okay, and I've got 4 cut that quickly. So now these are perfect matches, and right away I'm just going to place 2 pieces right sides together and pop a pin through there. If you're using directional fabric, make sure you're cutting the triangles the correct way. A lot of times I'll see people fold it in half and then try to fold up this way, and if it's directional, that doesn't work. Or they'll cut this and then flip this around like this and try to cut. That works if your fabric is not directional, but if it's directional, it doesn't work. Okay, now the next step, all you do is sew, and you're going to start here, back stitching, sew down, leave your needle in the fabric, lift the sewing foot, turn, and sew all the way up and back stitch here. Leave this top totally open. Okay. And I'm using about 1/4 inch seam allowance. You don't need any bigger than that. This Janome is so smooth. I forget that I don't have to put a foot down or anything. I just stop and start with a button. I'm not even pressing a presser foot. So here's the sewn piece. I'm going to turn it right side out. I left my really small point turner downstairs, darn it. I was sewing these up yesterday. But a knitting needle works in a pinch too. I like to make sure that these seams are really nice when I press. If you know it's going against a wall, you could always put a piece of muslin or cheap fabric on the back and your focus fabric on the front only. So I've got one triangle done. Now, when I'm feeling really persnickety, I might come in here and just trim off those dog ears or triangles at the top and get rid of the strings. This is now ready to place into my bias tape. Now, most of the time, because I like to do things a little faster, I'll just use a prepackaged double fold extra wide bias tape. I like the Wrights brand. Let's see, they come in all sorts of colors, and these are the colors I brought up here, but none of these are going to work for this. So I'll go get a pink one or something and finish that up. Now for the baby bunting, I make a skinnier binding. And what I did is just took a 1.5 inch strip. This is a skinny jelly roll strip, but just cut it from your fabric. And I just folded it in exactly like binding. So fold the outside edges into the middle and press. And then fold again. And so that would, the baby bunting, once this is sewn, I would just lay it in there, fold that down, and then sew the edge down. But I'll get into that in detail in a few minutes with the regular size. Okay, let's move on to a strip pieced bunting. So instead of a solid fabric, I'm going to use scrap pieces and put them together. So you can either use prints, which I love to do, or you can use some strips. Maybe you've got some jelly rolls left over you want to use up. Let's do both. And I'll fast forward this so it's nice and fast for you. Now I will lay them how I want them to go together and sew again. Sometimes you might get to this point and realize it's not quite long enough because the seam allowances. So just add another strip down here. It can even be a tiny little remnant because it's just literally that point. So I'm just going to sew this to the pink and we're almost ready to cut. Remember to press, lift and press with the strips. Otherwise they can start bending and going wonky pretty quickly. Okay, this one is big enough. So now I just need a backing fabric. And I am just going to use a solid for the back. So again, just like before, lay them right sides together. You can put a pin in. If your fabric's directional, make sure it's straight. Now I'm going to sew these together. I like when I sew a pieced bunting, I put the pieced one on top and look at this while I'm sewing to make sure that these seam allowances don't get all crazy, like one up and one down. You'll tend to notice that. If you'd rather take the time to press all these open, you can. I just don't find it's worth my time. Now I often come in and I snip off that point on the end and snip a little bit on each corner. Turn it right side out just like the fabric one. Press the point out. Take your time pressing your seams out. And then press. I just can't help but be in a happy mood when I'm making bunting. I don't know, they're just cheerful. Whoever invented bunting, you did me a solid. And there's a pieced one. Now I have pieced these and put it together so that the stripes were wonky or on the diagonal or crazy piecing. Anything works. Bunting is forgiving. It's fun. I mean, I don't have to sell you on this. Like, you'll just know. Let's keep sewing. I was just putting together this baby bunting, and I do want to mention with the baby size, you want to take a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance because it is so small. And then also, when you're bringing this out forward, you might need to take a pin, like a normal sewing pin, and pull out your corner bit a touch. Don't be too aggressive. Tuck them in. When I'm laying them in here, I position, I make sure all these spaces are the same. Usually I do an index finger. So let me show you what I mean. I don't always touch my buntings because then sometimes they don't move as well if you're curving it in an archway or a window. So I'll come in, I'll put my finger down and then move it over, and that's how close all the buntings are. And then I for sure put a pin in to hold it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to show you how I crazy piece a bunting also. So I've got these scraps and I'm just going to throw them together every which way and see what happens here. So this one I'm going to come across here and sew all the way across the top. Seam allowance really doesn't matter as much here. Just do what you think you need to do to make sure that it's joined. There's that piece. I'm going to sew it to this pink. My pug is just yipping and a yapping downstairs because my neighbor just pulled into his driveway. Okay, so I've got this section. Now let's see how this fits on here. Oh, I really wanted a lot of stripe. I think I'll do it. You know, I can always use the stuff that I don't include on another triangle improv piece. I'll just use those sections in another triangle. Nothing's wasted. I'll always reuse it. So same as before. Isn't that just so funky and cool? I mean, I love it already. Holy smokes. On the back, I'm just going to use another solid. So just like before. So right sides together. And I'll have another block and a GIF. Tip for when you're sewing these is to definitely check both sides and make sure your tips are flat and lined up down here. It can be easy to start sewing and not realize a tip is folded up, and that'll make you mad. So just check, and if you need to add a second pin down here, go ahead and do it. No big deal. Just a fun little side tip. Did you know that Havel's scissors are magnetic? So I don't have a camera person because I do all this myself, but look, I'm gonna pick up pins. Can you believe that? Is that not the coolest? I don't know why I haven't shared that before. Probably because I just melted a pin that I didn't see that was just hanging out on my ironing board. So this is that pin now with its melted little flower head. Poor baby. It's going in the pin graveyard, which, by the way, I feel I have to mention, I keep my old blades, pins, anything sharp in a glass jar with one of those collapsible lids that then you lock down. Do you know what I'm talking about? I should probably go get it and show you. Never, ever, ever, ever throw anything sharp in the trash. I know you probably know that, but I have seen it so many times where people are like, old rotary blade, and they toss it in the trash. And I won't mention names, but one is related to me, and I about blew my gasket because that thing is sharp as all get out, and that will cut either you when you take your trash out, your kids, your unicorn, the garbage man, or her sanitation expert. So don't do that. Put it in a glass jar, put it in a coffee can, old school style, the tin with a rubber top, whatever you need to do, and then take it to Walgreens and give them a $10 bill to dispose of it for you. Anything. Usually each town, village, city has a sharps disposal in place. It's worth a quick Google. You don't want that to cut you. You don't want to get tetanus, get your tetanus shots. Can you tell I'm a nurse? Okay, so I've got this baby one sewn together. Isn't that just so precious and cute? I hang that on this green dresser that I have in my downstairs bathroom, and just adds a bit of cheer. And this one I'll be hanging on my kitchen wall. If you've seen any of my Instagram posts, I have a blank wall in my kitchen and I really don't know what to put on it, so I just change the bunting all the time. So there's that one. And see, it doesn't have to be all the same fabric at all. I just threw all those together and I love it. This is the large size. So I went ahead and did the triangles just like I showed. And now I'm going to show you on the sewing machine how I'm sewing it all together so that nobody is lost in the process. Okay, so I made this binding out of the same fabric because I just wasn't liking any of the solid colors with it. So let me just show you. This is 2 inches wide, or tall, it's 2 inches tall in the width of the fabric, and I had to do 2 widths. I just pieced it in the middle. So I folded the long edges in to meet in the middle, and then folded over again. And so it's like a Pac-Man that this triangle will then sit in. So these are already placed. I do my finger width, and I'm laying this up to touch that middle crease. It's all the way in there. Make sure your triangle is all the way in, because you want to make sure you're sewing all those layers together. And then I'm going to add my little tag because I think it's cute. I get my tags done at Worldwide Label on Etsy. And then this, I always give myself at least 10 inches of tail on either end, because you do want to be able to tack it up somewhere or tie it around a curtain rod or a finial or something, a fence post. So give yourself enough tail for sure. This tail is 17 inches long. So as you can see, this is the difference in size. That's the large triangle. Here's the small, the regular. That's regular size. And then here's the baby size. Aren't they cute? And you could take the pattern, the PDF pattern templates are on the blog for you. I'll link it. And you can upsize, downsize all you want. Do any size you want. Doesn't matter. Okay, let's sew this together. I'm going to start here. Now once I'm done with the bunting, I come in and lay the first and last together like this, and then I trim the tails the same length. And a lot of times I'll use my pinking shears on the end so that there's that cutesy kind of jaggedy triangle edge, but my pinking shears are downstairs, so I'm just going to use that. So now both tails are the same length and nothing will look off or wonky. Now some of these triangles I did not trim before inserting into the top binding, so I'll have to go in and look for any loose threads, or if I missed anything, and fix that now. This one, for instance, has some loose threads, and I want to get those out now before I hang this up. Just do a once over, make sure everything is good to go. And do come in and press this one more time before you press the top edge before you hang it up. All right, so there's one. Here's the regular size. And these are totally reversible. I just love it. It's so fun. And the cute baby size. I'm going to try to get some photos of these hanging up in my kitchen so that you can see, as well as some of the other buntings I have made in years past. These do make great items to have at craft fairs or sales, because who doesn't like a colorful decoration? They're easy to gift and wrap up. And you know, if you use scraps and you charged $12 or $15 for this, I'd buy it. I'd pay that. And you're not out a ton of money. This size, the regular size, was one of my best sellers when I lived in England, because people would hang it up in the window. It would just fit perfectly in the window like this, all curvy and cute. So, okay, I can't wait to see your buntings. Tag me if you post on social media so I can share. See you.